Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Pollan, a coach, writer, and deeply curious human, and this is Hello Void. This series is a collection of unscripted conversations at the intersection of psyche and uncertainty. All of this in 2025. So I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs, coaches, creatives, healers, thinkers, feelers, really anybody who wants to explore what it actually means to be human right now, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. All of this at a time when the world just feels increasingly chaotic, contradictory, and wired for overwhelm. So I'm sitting down with people and talking to them about how they're making sense of their inner lives and how they're learning to live alongside emotional pain and uncertainty, and also what they've noticed in the people that they work with too. Because being human, it's not a solo experience. It's relational and it's bittersweet. It's joy and grief, expansion and fear, doubt and wonder, all of this sitting side by side. So today I'm sitting down with Samantha Potter. She's an energy healer, life threshold transformation coach, and end of life doula. And thank you so much for being here, Samantha. To start us out, why don't you tell us about you and why you said yes to having this conversation today?
Um, so one of the things about me that is I am I am both introverted and always pushed to stretch my boundaries. And so this was a great stretch of my boundaries. Um, Actually, a very safe place to come to talk about all these things that you want to talk about that nobody ever wants to talk about with me.
That's how I feel too.
So that's what made me really excited. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I call myself an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert, depending on how I am feeling, because I also have those moments where I'm like, okay, my nervous system is telling me that this isn't safe. And also I know that I want to expand, I want to grow as a human. And so I'm going to push those boundaries a little bit. Like I love hearing that.
yeah.
So the first question I have for you is, how has your understanding of what it means to be human changed in the past 2 years, emotionally, spiritually, or otherwise?
Oh, absolutely flipped upside down on its head. You know, I mean, COVID played a big part in that, and it did that for everybody worldwide. But in the middle of COVID, then I get a stage 3 cancer diagnosis.
Oh,
And so even though I had been spending the previous 25 years working sort of adjacent to end of life, I was an estate planning and probate paralegal. So I've been talking to people about death and dying. You don't really internalize that, you know. I know all the paperwork and I know the procedures, and this cancer diagnosis was stage 3, which meant it was very, very serious. It could tip into stage 4, but right now we caught it in time. So it was not a fun experience, but you know, it was something that I was not immediately, uh, you know, updating my will and planning my funeral.
yeah.
Right? It's just we'll get through this.
It really brings your mortality into question, though.
It does, and you have to face it. And the biggest question that I was faced with that I couldn't even really put into words for anybody else was why? What was this all about? Not why did I get cancer, but what's
What's the
life
point of
about?
being human? Yes.
What why would why are we here? What is our purpose? What is our I raised my first family. My husband and were raising our granddaughter. She was a joy in our lives. I'd been working at the same law firm for 25 years. I loved my clients. I did a good job. I volunteered. I was a good human being, but what's is that all there is? There's got to be something more. And while I'm going through this existential reexamination of my life, uh, you know, it's during COVID. It takes forever to get all the treatment started. Anxiety's popping up. I stumble across on a friend of a friend's Facebook page, I think. I don't even remember anymore how, but you know how social media serves you up friend adjacent people,
Yep.
right? And they said something that intrigued me, and I clicked on their profile, and they identified themselves as a death doula. And I went, never heard of that. But I kind of knew what it was, right? I could do that. And, this was several years ago, but I was already planning on retiring eventually, thinking, well, I could start this as a side gig. I could get my training all out of the way. And then when I retire, I've got this business to go forward. And so that's kind of what started it. But yeah, I mean, it was a deep dive into what really is our purpose and what does it mean to die? And is there anything else? And all that.
Yeah, and
So,
also then what does it even mean to live?
exactly, exactly. Yeah, because you take that corollary. Death is as much a part of life as birth is.
Mhm,
And yet we celebrate and anticipate birth. We, we work hard for it sometimes, spend
mhm,
hundreds of thousands of dollars if there are fertility issues. And yet death is avoided and vilified.
mhm.
You know, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think if I were to put a hypothesis out there, I feel like what I notice in people is that they feel like birth is almost more something that they can control, and because death is not something that they can control, it makes it something that we shouldn't talk about, something that we should push away.
Yeah, but in both cases, there is no control over
Exactly.
birth and lots of control over
Exactly.
death. So,
Exactly. So, how do you yourself like make space for pain and uncertainty when it shows up?
when it shows up for me, this is a tough one, and I see it and I feel it in myself so much more clearly now that I am intimately involved in helping my clients through it, no matter which stage they're going through.
Hmm.
But I have found that the best, gentlest, maybe not easiest, but the least punishing, we'll say. Sometimes
Yes.
it's hard work, but it's,
Yes.
you don't end up, kicking yourself. The best way to lean into that is with curiosity and community. Don't try to do it by yourself, but do really, really lean into what is this? Why am I reacting like this? Is this really the end of the world, or is it just the end of this phase, or an invitation to open up to something new, or you know just another reminder of just how effing strong you are. You don't need it, but somebody thought you needed to,
Yeah. Well, and then with the people that you work with, what what do you see in them like in terms of emotional patterns and struggles? What do you see people wrestling with the most?
um, it's slightly different depending on which phase of life we're talking about, right? So because I deal with people at the very end of life, and there's no question. I mean, there might be, their prognosis, they've got a terminal diagnosis. The prognosis may change. They may have good days, bad days. It may go downhill much faster. They may live longer, but they're wrapping things up. And then the coaching clients. So I call those my doula clients, and then everybody else my coaching clients or my energy work clients.
Okay.
And I intermingle coaching or energy work through my whole practice. If it's wanted, if it's needed, it can be a standalone. Um, but so my coaching clients, it's the and it really does apply to the doula clients too. But in different levels of intensity.
Hmm.
Uh, the coaching clients haven't quite realized that life is going to change around you. You are going to change around you. As you live, you gain more experience, you, your values change, your focus changes just naturally. You know, if you do kind of the standard American family, you know, 2.5 kids and marriage, whether there's divorce and remarriage or whatever involved in it, it's the ideal that nobody gets to do anymore is, you leave home when you're 18, you either go to work, you go to college, and then you go to work. Eventually you get married or you have a long-term relationship, you have children, you buy a house, you settle down, you may move occasionally. Your kids start their own cycle, they move out, you're empty nesters, maybe you downsize, you move to a retirement community, and that's a life. Every one of those things is a life in and of itself.
Hmm.
Every time you make a change, from moving out from your parents' house, your whole life is upside down. It's like a little practice for death. You know,
That's
how do
true.
we wrap up that part of our life? Luckily we can still stay connected to those people. We still have a way of communicating with them and going back and visiting and sometimes moving back in if things don't work out right. But really it's all the same issue is how do we make sense of what we're doing now, given what we all of our experience and all of the things we've learned, and how do we lean forward into the future to keep doing it even better? And your definition of better is as good as mine. It could be just so it's easy for me, or it could be so I can solve all the world's problems.
Absolutely. What do you think people are really longing for right now?
Well, they're longing for things that we never really had, but they never admitted. You know, they want they want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, they want to be important. And we all are in our very small ways, but kind of with, as you said in your intro, we're in 2025 and the whole world is just like flipping upside down. I mean, it's not just one thing, it's everything is crumbling. So they want they want to know that when they wake up tomorrow, things are still going on, there's some continuity. And that lack of continuity is probably what brings people to me. Whether it's I just got divorced, I don't know who I am anymore, or I got promoted into my dream job, but there were no openings locally, so I had to transfer across the country. So not only do I have imposter syndrome, but I know nobody.
Yeah. Is there an idea or belief about emotional well-being that you used to hold and no longer do?
Yeah. I don't know if I can put it into words, but I have this really deep felt sense that the the medical and mental health world, they have a manual called the DSM. I think we're in version 6 now, right? DSM
Did they
6.
release six? I knew about 5 point something or another.
Oh, maybe it's still 5 point something. I I used to have a copy, but I'm old enough that my DSM is a 4. Right? But but everything in that DSM is a diagnosis of something that's wrong for you, wrong with you.
Mhm.
And when we're talking about emotional and mental health, there can be some brain functions that break down, like, dementias and things. But most of what we experience is normal.
It's emotions
Nothing, there is nothing wrong with us. We just need better tools
to learn how to navigate it.
to learn how to navigate it. Because I got to tell you, emotions, especially the negative ones, are powerful now motivators.
Yes.
They'll get me my butt up off the couch every time. Contentment. Yeah, I'll sit here and read another chapter.
That's true. Absolutely. I something that I say often to myself and really to anybody who will listen to me is that any of these emotions are they're signals to us. They're not something for us to like judge ourselves for having. They are natural parts of being human. And it's what we do with them, what we learn from them that I'm going to say matters more. And I don't know that that's quite the right terminology of what I want to go for, but
But I get it. Yeah. And it's like, I don't have the medical or psychological terminology, but in my mind, um, it's like emotions are a byproduct of our physical body. It's our body's way of telling us something. But when we turn that emotion into a feeling and we take it on like a cloak, that's when it becomes us. I'm angry. I'm sad. Now, I know that there are some chemical imbalances that cause depression. I'm not slighting depression in any way.
yeah.
But, there are grief. Grief isn't even emotion. Grief is a complex event
Yeah.
that we carry with us whenever we choose to love. We start grieving when we think about when we're not going to have that object of our love.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter whether it's a pet, a person, a job. The idea that I was planning my vacation and then it got ripped out from under me because,
Yeah.
I had to cancel.
To say the things that never even came to fruition, we still
Right,
grieve
right.
those.
Yes, you can grieve those. You can grieve you know, when I was 6 years old, I wanted nothing more than to be a ballerina. I am the clumsiest, least graceful, least flexible ballerina on the face of the earth. But in some ways, I'm still a ballerina inside, you know?
Absolutely. It's all perspective.
Yeah.
So this question is I'm curious about the end of life doula, the death doula
Okay.
role. What do you find people regretting the most at the end?
Um, well, we've all heard the memes and the sayings. They regret the things that they didn't do. But the biggest category of things that people regret that they didn't do was reach out to people, whether it's to repair a rift or just stay in touch. I think about that and it brings it so close to me. Um, Next year, I'm up for my 50th high school reunion, right? I haven't gone to any of the ones before, but I think, would anybody even remember me? Because I moved away and occasionally I might be in touch with one or two of my friends if when I was back visiting the folks,
Mhm.
we ran into each other, but that's been decades since that's
Yeah.
happened.
You were 18 when you saw them. Like,
I was 18. Yeah. I'm going to be 67 next week.
yep.
That is, well, I was 17 when I graduated, but
Oh,
yeah, the
same.
same
So,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Almost 18. But yeah, yeah, it was just, and some of those people then were like, they were my heart, right? It wasn't even like the boyfriends or the ex-boyfriends or, whoever. It was like, these are people I grew up with.
Mhm.
They knew me.
they shaped
They
a
would,
lot about life at that phase. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We didn't even know ourselves then.
Mm-mm.
I don't think we even know ourselves now, but we've got a history that we can compile that can kind of point us in the right direction. But like I got the wake up call 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Uh, there are depths that we've never plumbed.
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah.
I I am I don't even know what number of years since high school would be coming up. I know that it often is like reunions and what have you are often a time when people actually start to reconcile their life and think about, okay, what have I actually done? And sometimes when they're looking at it from more of that Western productivity lens of like, okay, if I haven't gotten married, if I haven't had kids, if I don't have a career that I can talk about, it almost becomes like they don't feel like they are worthy of going back and talking about it.
Yeah. And so one of the every person is different, and every
Yes.
set of tools I bring at end of life and even in coaching is different because it depends on the person's needs. But out of my toolkit, one of the first that I most often reach for is a structured life review. And it is not a memoir or an autobiography where you tell me what you did when, in art class when you were 8 years old. It is, and I don't even have a confirmed set of questions. It's a method of digging back into the past in a non chronological way, usually,
Mhm.
and finding the moments of meaning and then really digging into those moments. What happened? How did that make you feel? Why did you react that way? All of those really deep, active listening questions to follow up and really explore. And by the time we're done, my client knows the meaning of their life. I don't tell them. They have discovered it. You don't have to have done the married 2.5 kids, retirement from a wonderful, prestigious career,
Mhm.
having donated, be a philanthropist. You can just be the best auntie in the world, and not only to your siblings kids but all the kids in the neighborhood, and and you're the safe person they can come to talk to. Or you can be the um you know the pet expert, or the whatever it is.
Mhm.
There are a lot of stereotypes, but you're the one that gets to pick what your niche is, what's important to you. And if what's important to you is boring to everybody else, so what?
Who cares?
You dove in, you experienced it. Yeah,
What I hear from that is that we each get to decide our meaning for life. It's not something that somebody else can tell us. It's
not at
not
all.
something somebody else can judge.
No, yeah. And, I kind of came to that on my own when I was going through my own kind of, facing death.
Yeah.
But, this structured life review is something that is taught in, doula school. And so it was like, yeah, okay, and so I actually used that to complete the process within me. I didn't dive as deep as I could have. It was just like, what can I do to make the rest of my life have meaning? Because the previous was just kind of normal stuff. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't when I looked at it. you know
What I'm thinking too, as we've been talking, like I'm 40. I don't have kids. I've never been married. I am very much that proud auntie that you were talking about, and I am very much a cat lady, and I will take all of those stereotypes. Like they are 100% fine with me. And for me, the reason that this series started and everything is I'm dealing with a massive amount of uncertainty in my life at this moment. And it became okay, I was going through a lot of the existential questions too. And like, why am I here? What is the point of this? If if humans don't get to have certainty, if humans don't get to have control, this is the way that my brain was talking to me, especially a few weeks ago. What is the point to even living? And so it's very, I'm going to say self-affirming. Well, it's very affirming to me actually to hear you say these things that you're going through as well, or that you went through in your time, what you see with these people, and to know that I'm not alone in the way that I struggled and related to uncertainty.
Everybody I talk to. And if I could give you a peek into my coaching process, it it's changed. I can't remember how many parts there are. We'll figure it out. The first thing we do is we work on self-trust,
Mhm.
because if you can't keep your promises to yourself, no matter how much you keep your promises to other people, you'll never change. You'll never do anything. And then we really dive into values, and not what are the best values, but what are your values.
What's most important to you?
And we all have values that conflict with each other. So at when your values come into conflict, how do you decide which is the more important one to uphold? I mean, just think of the very simplest example of, a 4-year-old being given a horrendous gift by grandma, right? They've been taught you don't lie, but you don't hurt people's feelings.
Mhm. What
Well,
do you do? Yes.
you're stuck either way, right? So how to identify your values, and how to notice when it's time for your values to shift. So this is a continuing exploration throughout life. And I'm not concerned about a life purpose. I'm really not, because you find your way in that. Again, going back to when you're stuck in a place where you don't know what to do, lean in with curiosity. And if you don't already have one that meets your needs, build a community around you. You know, crash somebody else's community to see if it works. If it doesn't, take the people that fit with you and start your own, right?
Mhm.
And you can gather them from so many places. Um, you can't do it alone, but nobody's going to do the hard work for you, but you
Yeah.
need the support. And for me, the biggest indicator that someone is living their purpose is what they do to give back. And I don't care if it's, house sitting or pet sitting for your neighbors when they're on vacation, just being a kind human being, or, the Melinda Gates, huge
Have the
philanthropies.
means. Yeah.
If it's your resources, your time, your energy, your money, or some combination of that, to the things that you benefited up by or that are important to you. So if you have a deep, deep connection to this earth, and you see the climate change and the looming fourth extinction event where, the whole biosphere is going to just kind of disappear, do something. You can't fix the whole problem, but you can do something. you know, Sort your garbage, recycle, you know, do something. And so find something to volunteer for. And you don't have to turn it into your whole life.
Mhm.
You're the one that decides what, but it's the feeling of contributing that creates that purpose. And so that essentially is my coaching platform. I mean, we dive really deep and we go into this, but no, you're not broken. And, if I'm coaching you, we're starting out as a little mini community, me and you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to invite you into the bigger community of other people have gone into this. And, you mentioned that a few weeks ago you didn't even know you were going to be doing this. I'm
Yep.
kind of in the same place. I've been getting downloads for months now that I need to start a community, and I don't know how to do that. So I'm just telling people now, it's June 2025 when we're recording this. It's not ready yet, but if you want to be part of a community that is, we don't have to have the same goal in mind, but we're concerned about the state of the world. We want to do something, and we all know that we none of us can do anything to fix it. But I think if enough of us come together, we can get the energy going, and just little bits at a time can help. And being in community with people who care, even if
The difference.
my focus is the fall of democracy and yours is cleaning the water, we still know we care and we're doing something. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but
I mean,
I'm creating something.
yeah, a lot of what I am hearing in like what you were saying before is that it's about the choices that we make in the moment that we're facing them.
Yes, yes.
And so it could
But
be
you
as
can't make
simple,
a good informed decision unless you know who you are
yes,
at that time, not who you used to be or who you want to
who
be.
you want to be. Nope, not at all. Yeah. It's about meeting yourself where you actually are.
And
And
who you want to be can inform kind of a little bit of the directionality, right?
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, speaking of your coaching, you have a free gift for listeners in terms of a 7-day email course. You want to tell
Yeah.
us about that?
So that is Reclaim What's Yours. It's just a little brief intro into if you find yourself at a life threshold, which can be as big as, retirement or the end or beginning of a relationship, career, whatever, or just that you sat back and realized something's not working in my life right now. Don't know what it is, but I'm just kind of not satisfied. You're the one that gets to define if this is the time to start looking and diving deep. It's just kind of a brief intro over these things that I just said.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's look at self-trust. Let's put into place some tiny little things that you can promise yourself you're going to do for yourself, and then do them
So
every
we don't
day.
dip your toe in to the water.
Yep. Yeah. And once you build that, you can, and so it's just a short little 7 series email course. It actually lasts for 2 weeks because I want you to integrate and think about these things. So
Mhm.
every other day, an email is delivered. Comes with a little journal reflection prompts. So you can go a little deeper than what's just in the email. And yeah, it's just kind of an introduction to me and kind of how you can start planning the next phase of your life.
Great. And the link for that will be available in the show notes for anybody who is interested in checking that out. I think it's my personal opinion, and I think we cannot change the world. One person cannot do it all.
Right.
And what we can do is take a look at our inner world and see what we can do for ourselves inside. And at least personally, I believe that the more of us who do that, the more humanity is helped as a whole.
Yeah.
I love that idea. And where else can people find you if they want to know more about the services you offer?
Well, my website is probably should be the most reliable, but it's a little out of date. So I do post new releases, new things. This email series is an evergreen. I have another evergreen for energy work too. You can find those on all the socials. I am most um, active on LinkedIn and Blue Sky, but I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. And eventually I'll get to posting things on TikTok right now.
Well, maybe you can start with some reels from this episode. When this
Oh,
comes out, you can post those on TikTok.
that would be great. That would be wonderful.
Excellent. And all of those links to find Samantha on the socials will again be in the show notes for this.
Yeah.
And one last question for you. What is your intuition telling you want to leave listeners with today? What words of advice?
Um, Use that curiosity to dig deep within yourself before you get to a huge turning point. Check in. We also have so many opportunities to guide our direction. You may be in the perfect place for you, but there may be some deepening you can do. Yeah. So curiosity.
Curiosity is a big one. I think it can get us through a lot because it helps remove a little bit of that layer of self-judgment where we can just get curious about what we're
Mhm.
seeing.
I have found that curiosity has tamped down the level of anxiety I feel about self judgment, new things. I can be curious about what this will bring to me. I can still be a little nervous, but I don't get that life halting anxiety where I just spin in circles.
Yeah, you've kind of given yourself a gift is the definitely the language I'm going to use. You've given yourself a gift of where you've been able to get curious enough about the anxiety that it no longer has to inform everything. It can be a sign of, hey, I'm feeling anxious. Okay, what is it that I can take from that this moment? Am I feeling overwhelmed because there's too much? I feel like there's too much to do, in which case I can chunk it down, or it's a way to not blame yourself for feeling it.
One of my favorite teachers told me that the physical sensation in your body of fear or anxiety is very, very, very similar to the physical sensation in your body, that somatic felt experience of excitement.
It is, yes.
And so rather than label it as fear or anxiety, oh, I'm feeling excited. I wonder what's coming up.
Yeah, there's potential here. There's
Right.
opportunity.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for having the conversation with me today, sharing your perspectives. I know I've really enjoyed you're the first death doula or any kind of relation of that, and I have talked to, and I love the idea of coaching that's informed by that work,
Yeah.
so that more people are able to access those things before they're faced with
I
end of
tell
life.
my coaching clients that we're really, with a little twist on it, we're doing the end of life work now so that when you get to your death, you don't need to go through that existential
Mhm.
angst. I can just come and sit by your side and we can have fond memories and I'll hold your hand as you pass.
Yeah, that is so sweet. Um, yeah, sorry. Wanted to hold space for that that thought in the moment. I like the idea of that one. Okay, so again, thank you so much. For everybody listening, if you want to connect with me or find out more about my coaching services, you can find me at followthedopamine.life, on Instagram at followthedopamine.life, or on Substack at followthedopamine. Again, all links will be in the show notes. And if this conversation sparks something in you and you want to explore what it means to be human with me in all of its bittersweet mess and beauty, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for being here. Samantha, thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh,
And
thank you for having me.
for everybody, thanks for being you. Bye.